Well, she said she was going to speak. I don't know if she's connected.
Yes. Yes. I'm live streaming so that people can watch. So we won't be able to hear them, but they're going to hear us.
We'll wait.
Okay,
Yeah.
so who's going to be watching?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful.
Okay.
Call me?
Yes.
No.
It's not instantaneous.
Well, yeah, because you're looking at the wrong thing. You want to look. This is what everyone sees. This is what they
So,
see.
but how come that's not what I see?
It's behind.
Can you go to the other one now so I can make sure? Okay, fine.
It's behind, yeah.
Okay. I know everybody's got places to be, so I'm going to get started. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're just live streaming for people who couldn't be here. I don't have anything really formal planned. It's really just kind of a schmooze fest. Whoever doesn't want to stay for that is totally fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to read the hesped that I said at the funeral, just so people can learn a little bit about my mom who didn't know her. And then I'm going to give a short, very short Dvar Torah. There are a few things here if people want to look at after. The two hespedim that my brothers gave. And then a bunch of pictures people were having fun looking through. And for anyone here who remembers Pineview, we have a very nice booklet that my uncle put together. It's worth going through if you have the time. And if not, anybody who runs out, it's fine. I appreciate that you're here. Really, I know everybody's busy. Okay. All right. Librarian, Mrs. Feit, Mrs. Fox, Savti, Mom. She was known by many names, and you might think this was a sign that no one really knew her. They each just saw a different part of her, but the opposite was true. Everyone who knew her really felt like a friend. She was open and honest with everyone and truly respected everyone she met. And this was my mom in a nutshell. She always had the utmost respect for every single person she met, and she raised us with the same respect, no matter how complicated it might have been. She might not have understood my obsession with playing baseball, but it didn't stop her from chanting embarrassing cheers from the stands during games in her encouraging mom way. And yes, they rhymed every single time. Because baseball mattered to me, it mattered to her. Despite missed homework, grass stains, and my refusal to stop playing even after dark, she was always there to cheer me on, in Little League, in high school, and even beyond. When I joined the Teaneck Adult Softball League at 17, a league filled with actual adults whose parents were nowhere to be found, my mom was there. Still cheering me on. No rhymes this time, though, thankfully. During one game, Mary, a teammate of mine, pointed to my mom and said she looked familiar and asked me who she was. My mother, I answered. Trust me, you don't know her. She's just my mom. Yes, I do, she insisted. I just can't place her. And then she remembered. Mary used to work as a sales clerk at Joey's. Do you know if you remember that? No. Joey's. A children's clothing store that at this point had been closed for well over 10 years. But everyone used to shop there, including my mom. And out of the hundreds, if not thousands of moms that she had seen come and go, she remembered mine. Because she was so friendly and would always schmooze at the checkout line, and it was clear that even though they were total strangers, she really cared when she asked how Mary was doing. Because she genuinely respected every single person she spoke to, even a total stranger. My mom used to take us out for ice cream every week, on Wednesday, of course, because Wednesday is Sunday at Cardell. And we loved ice cream Sundays, even in the winter. I remember going with her to an outdoor ice cream stand. You lined up outside and waited on the sidewalk while the guy inside the warm booth made your ice cream. During the winter, the lines were pretty short, but the cold didn't stop us, not even when the wind whipped our coats around and tried to blow them off. Once we got our ice cream and went home to eat it where it was nice and warm, it was totally worth it. People walking by while we waited for our ice cream looked at us like we were crazy. Sometimes I was embarrassed by the looks, even though I really wanted my ice cream. But my mom was never embarrassed, because if you want something, why not go for it? Respect includes respecting yourself and always being true to who you are, even if who you are is a person who really wants ice cream in the freezing cold. Even if who you are is a person who wants to do something unconventional, like joining the women's tefillah and taking an active role in davening, like being a woman who enjoys learning Torah on a high level, and harboring a deep love for Israel way back in the 60s when it wasn't even cool yet. She lived her life true to her beliefs and encouraged us to do the same. I think this is evident in the weird and wonderful ways that we've all chosen to live our lives. The love and respect she had for her children, and even more so for her grandchildren, has inspired me in so many different ways, even beyond baseball and ice cream. She was a role model as a daughter, mother, grandmother, and friend to all. The love she shared with my father was never more evident than in the last few weeks. In the smiles she shined only on him, and in his dedication to her. The world will never shine quite as bright after today. Okay, just hoping I could get through it this time.
We were talking about her color on the way over here. How everything with your mom was color.
Yeah.
Her clothes, her makeup,
Red.
her jewelry. It was all just
Yes.
happy.
Car.
Her car, right?
My grandchildren said even the shutters on the house.
Red was her color, and one of her friends came with this bright red scarf to the funeral, and she said, my husband looked at me and said, it's not appropriate for a funeral. She said, but for Shelly, it's appropriate. Okay, onward. My mom loved books, good books. She was a librarian. And she loved Tanakh. She considered Tanakh to be an example of great literature. The words of Navi, especially Nevi'im Achronim, were to her beautiful poetry. Every week I'd sit next to her in shul, and as the Haftorah began, I'd nod off, and she'd lean forward excitedly, sometimes reading along quietly with the Baal Koreh. I thought for tonight she'd appreciate if I took a look at this week's Haftorah with an open mind and tried to share the beauty in those words. So I opened my siddur, and lo and behold, this week's Parsha, Parshat Beshalach, is connected to the Haftorah of Devorah HaNeviah, a strong woman who was a leader in her community, like my mom, because it's trying to make me cry. The connection between the Parsha and the Haftorah is obvious. They both contain a famous song that was sung after a great victory. In both cases, the text explicitly states that the victory was based on Hashem's help, and in both cases, women are mentioned in leadership positions, Miriam at Yam Suf and Devorah with Barak's victory. One key difference between the stories is that the story of Devorah is much less miraculous and sounds much more like the world we live in today. Yes, Hashem helps Bnei Israel fight in both stories, but in Beshalach they're told, Hashem yilachem lachem va'atem tacharishun, stand down while Hashem fights your battle. In the story of Devorah, we see a joint effort between the two sides. Hashem threw Sisera's army into a panic, and then Barak's army swooped in and killed the enemy fighters. Devorah, like Miriam, is an Nevi'ah, but she is also a communal leader. In Beshalach, Miriam is a secondary figure to her brother Moshe. Although she leads the women in song, it is only the women, and not the men, and only after Moshe has sung the exact same song. Devorah, in contrast, is both a spiritual and political leader to both men and women. We see people coming to her under her tree for advice and judgment, and while she herself does not fight, her presence is crucial to inspire the troops to victory. However, in many ways, Barak is the true hero of the story because he realizes that the key to success is balance. He was a competent general, commanding thousands of troops, yet he knew he needed Devorah's help and he wasn't afraid to ask for it. He wasn't worried that this teamwork would in any way detract from his own personal honor. He just...
Shelly, when Susan and I got married, which is 45 years ago or so, I'd only like to highlight her extraordinary courage and incorrigible spirit. This is a woman who, it turns out, unbeknown to us, and I think the rest of the family, except for maybe a handful of your closest, that she contracted cancer 4 years ago. We never knew and never could knew. The extraordinary thing about Shelley was the fact that she continued to live with huge optimism that everything was positive for those 4 years, which must have been very short for her. We saw her and had her at home a week before the bar mitzvah. And that was only a month before she passed away. And the fact that Shelley had the spirit to carry on and enjoy that moment. And the visit was so positive is an extraordinary central aspect of her character. Yeah, and it's that I think Susan too will remember more than anything else.
So we should have wanted it.
I remember your line from way, way back. Lisa and I were apparently in playgroup together when we were 4. So Lisa's mom was always Lisa's mom there. And even though we were a grade apart, so eventually we stopped being friends for a while, we ended up together in college. I didn't really see Lisa's mom so much. But then we all both made out and she came, and every time she saw me, it was like we were best friends and this big welcome. And even though, like, I don't know, how often did I see her? Even when we were in college, like, never.
A couple of years.
And that was that. It was like, that warmth was so
But she always asked, in between, she would always ask, whenever she hadn't seen anybody, she would always want to know what they were up to, and she would file it away. She knew what everybody was up to.
Exactly. She'd be like, yeah, and she would be up on today on everything.
Right.
And then, of course, I knew her in elementary school, in the library. I loved to read books, and even more welcoming was the fact that Mrs. Feit was in the library as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Redhead.
Why was she also known as Mrs. Feit?
Okay. So she worked with Mrs. Wolf, the librarian. And there was, wait, it's better. There was a Mr. Fox who worked in the office.
Right.
So clearly she was Mrs. Fox. So that's a Mariah inside joke. Yeah.
So if I don't have to get up, I'll say
You
something.
don't have to get up.
So I know your mom longer than you did. Now
Yes.
we're the cousins.
That's true.
And my first memories of her, it wasn't the first time I met her, but I still always think of her pregnant with you. And she would say, I'm home anyway, bring baby Carl Hockhouse. Or she called him baby Carl Hockhouse.
Till he was 35.
And she'd say, bring baby Carl Hockhauser over, I might as well watch him. And I just remember she was like the happiest pregnant person I ever seen. I was like, why is she so happy about it? She was. And I mean, there are a million things I'll never forget, but the time she was here and she had that horrible eye emergency, and the time she fell and she broke her arm, you would think like nothing happened. I came up here that Friday night. We came up to see her. She's getting up and greeting us at the door, and she's, smiling, and it's like makes you wonder who's the person who was. And evidently she was already ill, and by then we didn't know. But so she had double reason. But I mean, when she broke her arm last year.
Yeah, but the thing is, she wasn't actively sick from the cancer. She really didn't have any symptoms, and she was very, very healthy for 4 years. Really until 6 weeks before she passed away. And even at the end, she wasn't in pain, and she really didn't suffer. Really, it was a bracha. Yeah.
So where was she born? Can you give us a little history?
Okay, so she was born. So my grandparents ran this hotel, the Pine View, right, which some of you know and were at. My great-grandparents started it, and then my grandparents took it over, and they lived there. They lived in the Catskills. And that was where my grandfather actually grew up. And then when they had kids, they decided that, it wasn't a good place to raise frum children. There was no Jewish education. They tried to start a Jewish day school. It didn't really fly. So they moved to the Upper West Side. And I guess, I don't know if it was when my uncle was born or when he was ready to start school. And he, I think, was 4 years older than my mom. So by the time she was born, they were already living there. And they went to Ramaz, I think, the elementary school through high school. And there was a lot of back and forthing between there and the Catskills. And that was their life between the city and the hotel. Yeah.
It was a great hotel.
Yeah.
Yes.
She remembered that that's where my parents met each other.
Yes, that's right.
What?
That's right.
And when my parents went to visit, you
Yes,
you
I remember.
right?
I remember. Yeah.
Nice.
That's Doesn't matter how long ago it
You
was.
see each other all the time? Yeah, about 30 years.
Doesn't matter, like a blink of an eye for her. Yeah. Yeah, she kept up with everybody. She cared. If she asked how you were doing, it's because she really wanted to know how you were doing. And that was an amazing thing. And she'd remember everything. And then she'd meet you, 6 months later and be like, oh, so how's so-and-so? As if you just picked up in the middle of a conversation.
She had an extraordinary memory.
Yes.
I never
Unbelievable.
understood how she did that.
Her social memory, but also the connections between people. They would meet somebody and they'd walk on, after 20 minutes of conversation. And my father would turn to her and say, what the heck was that? Her cousins, the uncles, whatever, from the hotel. And be like, okay. She knew everybody and keep up with their children and their grandchildren. And many of them she knew through Mariah. She was a librarian for 33 years, I think, at Mariah. So she raised, generations of readers.
And they were all hers. Outdoors it was my arena.
Yeah. Yes, exactly,
Yes.
exactly. They were all her children. And the amount of people who came to the Shiva and said, oh, we remember, they had all these wonderful memories, of the librarian. I don't know how many people out there, if you ask them the name of your childhood librarian, or some teacher that you had, who remembers? But she made such an impact on people. She really would take the time. You'd come in to look for something, and, she wouldn't let you leave until you had a book in your hand. This kid would come in, I don't like biographies, but we have to do a report. So my teacher said I need a biography, and I don't like biographies, so I'm not going to read it. Okay, we'll find something. You like sports? Okay, I have a book about, a pitcher. I don't know, my teacher said it has to be a biography. This is about sports, so it can't be good. Show it to your teacher, I'm sure it's fine. And the kid would walk out happy. So she had that knack of, she didn't give up. Sometimes I would call her, and this was, maybe she was still a Mariah, but even after she retired, and I'd call her up and, be struggling to find something for my kids to read, and she never said, you know what, I'm retired. And she never, and sometimes it would be these very specific, it can't be this and it can't be that, and it has to be about sports, but it needs to be, she always said, okay, give me a minute. She always came up with something. It didn't matter. She always had something, that she could pull out of her back pocket and give it to somebody to read. So.
She also provided a haven in the library for
Yes.
wandering children.
Yes.
I don't know if you know that.
I would have to say that the people who remember her have the strongest memories, remember the most fondly, or the wanderers, because at least there, unlike in Rote, there's a place for those kids, a safe place for those kids to end up. And she never said, why are you here? And she never said, go back to class. She always said, what can I do for you, honey? How are you today? Yes, which is of course the bane of my existence, because it meant that, I wasn't going to go hang out in the library, because I would have gotten in trouble. So I was the only one who could wander and hang out in the library. And I love to read, so for me it would have been great. So these are the things you put up with as the child of a librarian.
Lisa, can I share something?
Yes, please.
I wasn't planning on it, but it seems like
Please
it's
do.
a good space to share.
Yes, I'm just
I
going
wrote a
to
letter.
take another drink.
My sister, who I doesn't know, was married to Lisa's brother, so we're family by extension. And when
No, just family.
that's okay.
Oh, I have another story about that.
So I wrote a letter to Lisa's father the day of the funeral. I wanted to share some thoughts that I had since I couldn't be there in person. So I'll share it here. It's called Things I Will Miss About Shelly. Did you see this letter?
I don't know if you even showed it to me.
I will miss Shelly's enthusiastic welcome or hello, always with an outstretched arm ready to give a hug. I will miss Shelly's warm smile. I will miss Shelly's distinct voice and unique phrases like pussycat. I will miss how Shelly only spoke positively about everything and anything. She could take any situation and spin it to see only the positive. I can't recall any time ever hearing her speak negatively about anything, ever. I will miss how Shelly made us feel like part of her immediate family. It's not a surprise that Sima, Ari, and Yehuda instinctively call her and refer to her as Safti. Shelly bought a bracelet for Sima the same time she bought one for Rivka, and Sima's wearing it today. Shelly is my kid's third grandmother, and they are so lucky for that. I will miss how Shelly gave compliments and always made me feel good. I will miss Shelly's red hair. I will miss seeing Shelly on Rachov Gad or on Rachov Ruben, or passing each other in the car, and that comfortable feeling of seeing family that I felt every time I saw Shelly. Even though we will miss Shelly, she will forever be in our hearts.
Yeah, so like you were saying, family. There's no family by extension. There's no third, fourth cousins. Family's family. and there were certain parts of my mother's family which were just always very close. And when the older generation had, this was years ago, but they had grown up in one of these big rambling houses where they had multiple families, and so they were all very close. And so their kids kept in touch, and then somehow their grandchildren kept in touch, and especially because people lived, whoever lived in New Jersey, people kept in touch and were very close. And there are a number of relatives, in Teaneck that I grew up with, that the truth is, when I was a kid, I had no idea how we were related. Now that I know, it's not so distant, but they weren't first cousins. It didn't make no sense to me. So I have this one cousin who was a year older than me. We were in school together. Our lockers happened to be near each other. Where, a friend one day finds out that, we're talking, and they find out that we're cousins. And we weren't good friends. They didn't see us talking all the time. They're like, there's no way. Prove it. So now I'm trying to explain, okay, now this is somebody who's actually, the generations are, the older sister was 15, 20 years older than the youngest sister. So she's actually she's a year older than me, but she's my mother's cousin. She's my mother's second cousin. So she's my second cousin once removed. I'm trying to figure this all out in my head while I'm explaining, my friend looks at me and says, so you guys are not really family. And I say, you know what? That's not how it works in my family. If you're related, you're family. And we weren't, and our families were close. And when we had family get-togethers, they were all there. Those backyard parties with the whole family, could have 30, 40 people, but they were all immediate family. And the day of the funeral, we come back to the house for the Suda, and it's only really immediate family who come back with us. And the house is full, 25, 30 people. And they were all just the most immediate people that we wanted to have there. And that was, my mother kept it, she kept everybody together. That was her legacy.
How did your parents meet?
That's a good story. So the way my mother tells it, my father showed up on her doorstep Christmas Eve, 1965, I think it was. Her best friend, one of her best friends, had gotten engaged. And her mother, being the, hotelier and the hostess, and, my mother had taken on this role, said, you have to make an engagement party for your friend. Oh, okay, it's exams, whatever, things are busy, fine, you have to do it. Okay, she arranges this party. The brother of the guy that her friend is engaged to calls her up and says, listen, I have this roommate, I'd like to bring him to the party, I think he'll fit in well with the crowd, doesn't know anybody, but, he's my good friend, and it's my brother's engagement party, I'm going to bring him along. Fine, she says, no problem, okay. So she calls up to invite him to the party, because there were no Evites in those days. So I'm assuming parties were much smaller, so you had to invite everybody, person by person. And apparently, my father's younger sister, my aunt, picks up the phone and says, well, who are you, and why do you want to talk to Carl? So, but she got through, and he invited him to the party. He shows up, and he comes in, and as he tells it, she greeted him with the biggest smile, as if they were best friends, even though they never met. And comes in, and they start talking, and they're sitting on the side talking for hours. The next day, my grandmother says to her, you're a terrible hostess. She says, what do you mean? I threw a great party, everybody's happy. You're supposed to walk around and mingle and see how people do. You're sitting in the corner talking to some guy that I don't know. Now, my grandmother, of course, knew everybody, because she ran the hotel, she knew everybody in the Jewish community. And if there's a guy here that I don't know, how important could he possibly be? I think that's really what bothered her. Not that she wasn't from England. But she got to know him and forgave him for that. And that was it. Best friends ever since. They got married in 2.5 years later in 1968. 1969, they took their pilot trip to Israel, which wasn't called that because nobody did it in those days, but they were considering Aliyah. They came for a month or 2 months, traveled around, and they met people. They ended up, as my father says, getting the worst advice. They were told to go back, and if he was doing a PhD, they said finish your degree there and get some experience, and then come a few years later, and we all know what happens. You have some kids, you sit. Didn't happen. So, yeah, that was it. But they always had a deep love for Israel. And my grandparents were traveling here in the 50s. Nobody was here then. So they were very happy when I moved that they had an excuse to come back and visit and to see old friends. So, yeah, it's a big part of their story. Some of the pictures here actually are from their trip.
I think
that
they
summer.
have a lot of friends here.
Yeah.
We used to have to fight
Yes.
to get an evening.
Yes, it's true. You guys are at the top of the list, but they did have friends, and as their friends made Aliyah, they would come keep in touch, and then they were here for 2 months, the year of Ari's bar mitzvah, and it was like, I mean, they could have stayed in that neighborhood. It was home for them, you know. Yeah.
Then they maintain ties. I have a son who lived for a while on the Upper West Side, and when we would get together at that period when I was visiting on the Upper West Side, her nostalgia for the Upper West Side and the people she knew, and she kept ties even from that time when she was.
Apparently, when you're a New Yorker, you're always a New Yorker, no matter how long you're out.
Yes.
She said to me once a few years ago about still wanting to move back to New York. I'm like, really? She goes, well, you know, I lived there and I grew up there and I loved it. You've been in New Jersey for 40 years. What's the matter?
That's where I was born.
Where?
In New York City, because I couldn't be born in New Jersey.
Why not?
My mother's a New Yorker.
Oh,
Can't be
really?
born in New Jersey.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but your mother traveled. Your mother loved museums. She loved the art and the culture. And
Right, it wasn't for nothing. And she loved the city life.
She loved
and
the
the fact
city life
that,
and what the city had to offer.
Yeah.
And the last couple of years, they really enjoyed that.
But see, from my perspective, growing up in the suburbs with a huge yard and kids to play with, and traveling to the country where, I mean, literally, we roamed totally unsupervised, things that would never happen nowadays, but like acres and acres and woods that we weren't supposed to go into. To me, to even imagine living in the city, I mean, I couldn't imagine it. To be able to live in Teaneck, have all that, and be 10 minutes from all that culture, that's perfect.
But she wasn't.
But for her, it was a compromise.
But she wasn't confined.
No,
And it wasn't
no.
one of the again extraordinary sides to her nature was her interest in going out and exploring other cities. She didn't just come here to visit you.
Right.
She took side trips to Madrid or to Paris or to Amsterdam.
Yeah, it always had to be somewhere different. And even here, they would find some teal that they'd never done before.
That was my job. I had
Yeah.
to find a place.
Isn't that why you got trained as a tour guide? Just
Absolutely,
to
just to take Shelly and culture in places.
Yeah. No, but she never lost her love of learning new things. You know, and you can, you know, you get to a certain age and things are, you know what you like and you know what you do, and you know it's easy to just kind of have a routine, and routine was not what she was interested in. And she loved, you know, museums and shows and just anything new and, you know, experimental was interesting to her.
She always kept something on her refrigerator with new exhibits or places to go.
Always. The list was never empty to the point where there's a list. There's an unfinished list still on that fridge of places that she wanted to go to. Right? You know, it was always somewhere else. Didn't matter what you did. There was always something else that you could do. Yeah. That was her joy.
Thank you for sharing all these things. Yeah.
Thank you for coming to hear it. Please eat, because I don't want my kids to eat all this stuff. So, come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
you
much.
guys all for coming and for sharing. I really appreciate it all this
I
week.
kind of let that go, that comment.
I mean, come on. There's no food here,
I
right?
hate to help you out.
Yeah. Guard the food. Stay strong. Guard the food. Protect the food. Yeah.